Dear students, welcome back to our civics class. I hope all of you are safe and sound at home. Let's recall what we have learned in our previous sessions. We were dealing with the organs of the Indian government, right? Yes, we have completed the legislature in that we have dealt with both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and we have introduced the executive structure in India. Today we will be dealing with mainly president. This is what we have introduced towards the end of the previous session. So in the executive structure, the first person that we have to deal with is our president. So president is the head of the state, and he is also known as the first citizen. He is known as the head of the state. So in the first session I had given you an example regarding the government, that taking that government into a classroom or into a school, right? I hope you remember that. See here, president is just like the principal in the school. Though the principal is the head of the school, you don't see he is always executing things in your classroom. Instead of that, you see your class teacher is doing, or your class teacher is executing the things in the classroom. But he principal is the nominal, or he is the real head of the classroom and also the school. Same way, president is known as the head of the state, and he is also the first citizen. Okay, now let's go in detail about the president, how the president is elected, what are the qualifications needed for the president. When we come to the qualifications of the president candidate, these criteria should be met. Which are they? He or she should be Indian citizen. Of course, no one from outside can be Indian president. That's a common sense, right? And he or she must be above 35 years. Okay, and that is the second point. And third point, he or she must not be in any of the cases of the government service, which means he or she must not be in a central government service, or in the state, or in the local government service also. He or she shall not be a member or a servant. That is an important thing. And finally, we see that qualified to be a Lok Sabha member, which means all the qualification needed for a Lok Sabha member also needed for the president. Okay, so these are the major points, major qualifications that are needed for a candidate, one who is to become a president. Okay, now let us see how a president is being elected. That's the election and removal of the president. How he can be removed also we should know. So electoral college elects the president, which means, do I or you have the right to elect a president? No, it's not a direct election, but rather it's an indirect election. So who will be the members in the electoral college? Definitely you will have it, right? Indirect election means what? The people who were elected by us directly, they elect someone. That's called indirect election, right? So here in the electoral college, both MLAs and MPs, which means who are the MLAs, the members of legislative assembly. MLAs, they are members of the electoral college, and MPs, members of parliament, both in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they together elect a president. So we don't have the right to elect a president, but rather it's done through indirect election. Electoral college elects the president, and he or she has got a term of 5 years. Just like the prime minister, the president also has got a term of 5 years. And is there any case in which the office of the president can be vacant? Which means, is there any time that our country cannot have a head. Yes, there are in four situation president's office can be vacant. Let's examine, let's check out which are they. In case of expiry of the term and before coming the new president, this office can be vacant. That's one of the situations. And secondly, on a sudden death of the president. So that's quite unexpected. In that case, on death of the acting president, the sudden death of the acting president, this office can be vacant. And the third one, that is a resignation. Even the president can resign himself if he or she feels that he is not or she is not able to function as a president. He or she can resign himself or herself. So that is the third case. And finally we will see bit elaborately about impeachment. On these four occasions, president's office can be vacant, in no other cases. So here we have discussed about the election. Electoral college elects, okay, and for the term of 5 years, president is elected. And in case of these four reasons, only the president's office can be vacant. And one more thing you have to keep in your mind, that the president can be re-elected if he or she is capable of doing one more term, and the electoral college feels that he should be there for the benefit of our country. He can be re-elected. There is no legal issue for that. So these are the things that you have to keep in your mind regarding the election. And removal, we will deal with impeachment. This is removal, how the removal of the president can be done, that is through impeachment. Let's go to that. So here we are going to discuss how president in India can be impeached or removed from his or her office. So this procedure is called, the procedure to remove the president is called impeachment. And on what reason, what occasion he is removed? Do you have any guess? Of course, it is written here, on violation of the constitution. We have already discussed that the president is the head of the constitution. So he or she has absolutely no right to violate the constitution or to act against the constitution, because he is supposed to safeguard the constitution. Thus nobody has any right to violate the constitution, especially being the first citizen of India. Absolutely, the president has no right to violate the constitution. Thus in that case, he is to be impeached. And secondly, in case of any guilty of treason or in corruption, in case of corruption, president can be removed. Now let's discuss how this impeachment process can be taken place. Can be initiated either in Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. And simply we cannot impeach a president. For that we need 2/3 majority of votes in the parliament. And then the case moves to the constitutional court, and if he is proved that, if it is proved that he is guilty, then he is impeached. He or she is impeached from the office. I hope this part is clear. Now let's move to the next part, that is the powers of the president. So when we discuss about the powers of president in India, the president has got a lot of powers. Let's discuss which are they. Executive powers are there, and military powers are there, legislative powers, and financial powers, judicial powers in time of emergency, and discretionary. So all these powers are there for the president. So in India, the president has got so many powers. So let's discuss one by one. So here there are the major executive powers of the president. First and foremost, president appoints prime minister in India. Once the election is done, the prime minister candidate, then one who is won in the election, the prime minister candidate is appointed by the president in India. And secondly, the council of ministers are also appointed by the president, and judges both in Supreme Court and also in the High Court are appointed by the president in India, and also high dignitaries of the state. Who are they? The governor of the states, attorney general, and election commissioners, and also the ambassadors. They all are appointed by the president. So that is what the executive powers of the president. I hope this part is clear. Now let's move to the next. When we discuss the military powers of the president in India, we need to keep in mind that he or she is the supreme commander of the defense force in India, and also the president has the power to declare war and also to conclude peace. So he is the supreme commander and he has the power to declare war or conclude the peace, and also he or she, which means the president, represents India in the international conferences. And almost all the important treaties are made in the name of the president because he is the nominal head of the country. He is the head of the country, so these treaties are made in the name of the president. See, when we register our land, our property, we need to register in somebody's name, right? So when we make some treaties between countries, it has to be in someone's name, that is in the office of or in the name of the president. So the treaties are made in the name of the president. So these are the military powers of the president. He is the supreme commander, and president has got the power to declare war or conclude peace, and also represents India in the international conferences, and also finally we conclude with the treaties are made in the name of the president. Let's move to the next. When we come to the legislative powers of the president, he has got many powers. As we have discussed in the previous session, the president summons the parliament. So he has the power to call or arrange the parliament, and he also has the authority to dissolve the Lok Sabha before its term ends. So the president has the authority to dissolve the Lok Sabha before its term, before its time ends. And also it is the duty of the president, or it is the power of the president to make a law or an act. We had discussed it in the previous class. How a bill to become an act, it needs the signature of the or the approval of the president. So by that a bill becomes an act or a law. And the next one, the president nominates members to both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. We had already discussed this point too. See, two members from the Anglo-Indian community to Lok Sabha, and also 12 members who are excelling in different fields to the Rajya Sabha. So it's a duty or the authority or the power of the president to nominate members to Lok Sabha and 12 to the Rajya Sabha. And finally, and most importantly, ordinance. What do you mean by the ordinance? Ordinance are the temporary laws. See, in case of any emergency, when the parliament is not in session, some immediate laws are to be made. It is the power of the president to make temporary law. That is called the ordinance. I hope this point is clear. Ordinance are the temporary law. So it is made only in exceptional cases when the parliament is not in the session and immediate need of a law. Then it is the power, the president has got the power to make temporary law, that is called as the ordinance. And also you need to keep in your mind that these temporary laws, why it is called temporary, it is just because it is not there in an action after or more than 6 weeks once the parliament has summoned or once the parliament is there in the session. After that this law become invalid. I hope this part is clear. Now let's move to the next power of the president. When we come to the financial powers of the president, the annual budget is presented in the name of the president. The annual budget is presented in the name of the president, and also the money bills are presented in the name of the president. And importantly, most importantly, contingency fund, that you need to keep in your mind, that when there is an unforeseen expenditure for our country, the president has the authority or the power to grant a fund that is called contingency fund. I repeat, when our country is an unforeseen expenditure, so the president has got the power to grant a fund that is called contingency fund. So these are the major financial powers of the president. Now let's move to the judicial powers of the president. There are mainly two judicial powers for the president, which is the first one. The first one is to grant pardon. One who is sentenced for the capital punishment, if he or she suggest or apply for a mercy petition, then it is the power of the president to grant or not to grant, and also to reduce the sentence of the guilty. So that also is the power of the president, that is the grant pardon, this power. And the most important thing, the president is not answerable to the any of the courts. Let it be a matter of a high court or for the Supreme Court, he is not answerable. The president is not answerable unless and until the president faces with impeachment. Impeachment we have already discussed. So if unless and until the president meets with impeachment, the president is not answerable before the courts, because he is above that. So these are the major judicial powers. Now let's move to the next. The next power of the president is the emergency power. When we say the word emergency, what comes to your mind? Just imagine a situation, you are in your house and suddenly the power goes. Suddenly you move to take the emergency lamp, right? So that's a sudden action to take emergency lamp. So in the same way, when our nation is threatened with the serious issues like either external rebellion or the internal armed rebellion, there need a sudden action from the part of government. That action is called emergency, and the president has got the emergency power. And the president declare emergency with the approval of the parliament. So now the national emergency, how it is being declared. Now in the present scenario, across the world there are many countries already declared. Now some have come out of that emergency due to coronavirus pandemic. So how it is being declared? See, when there is an external threat or the internal rebellion here itself, then president declares national emergency. That's called the national emergency. And financial emergency. So the unforeseen financial instability when it is occurring in a country, in our country, the president declares a financial emergency. That's called a financial emergency. And also president rule. This is another term which you need to keep or memorize. President's rule. What it is? When the government machinery fails in a particular state or in a particular region, then the president takes control of that particular state. That's called the president rule. So these are the emergency powers. It is to be used only in the emergency situation. I hope this concept is clear. Now let's move to the next. So lastly, we're going to see the discretionary powers of the president. Once the election is over, when there is no absolute majority for any of the parties in Lok Sabha, the president has got the power or authority to appoint the prime minister. So that's what discretionary powers. So in today's class, we were dealing with the president, especially the president in the executive structure in India. And we have dealt with what are the qualifications needed for president, and also we have seen about the election and removal of the president. So in that we had discussed about the impeachment. Finally we had discussed the powers of the president. I hope this session was clear to you. Now you have 2 questions as a homework which is to be written down to your copies. Let's write it down. So the first question, what do you mean by impeachment? What do you mean by impeachment? And the second question, what are the executive powers of the president? So you write down these questions and learn the lessons well. Hope to see you soon with the next session. See you. Bye. Thank you.